بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'd like to welcome everyone back to the In Context podcast, and today we're going to talk about the rise of fascism in regards to the world order today. And first we'll have our dear brother Joseph start off, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So, I think over this is a pretty traumatic Thanksgiving weekend from a lot of people living in the United States and abroad. And, we all know the horrific story of the very tragic, senseless killing of two National Guard members by what appears to be, it's confirmed at this point, an Afghan national who was here as a part of the special program for those who directly facilitated and helped the United States military in Afghanistan. And as a result of this killing, which we don't know yet if it was an act of terrorism per se, as per the standard definition, or if this was a man who sort of snapped and went crazy. And the fact that they've sort of quieted, in my opinion, the fact that we haven't heard all that much drum beating about terrorism might indicate that this actually is a case of a sort of guy who had a mental issue. I mean, I've been following this very closely, and they've been surprisingly, linking more of this to, immigrants from Afghanistan, and these people are crazy. These people, where I have seen not as much other than from the Laura Loomer types. In my opinion, I feel like at least some people are definitely trying to turn this into an Islam thing, but the official statements that have come out have not hit that drum as hard as I thought they would. It's more being hit at the vetting, the immigrants. So don't get me wrong, there clearly is an Islamophobic element to this all, but I feel like that's being more amplified by the social media influencers than the actual people in the State Department who are more interested in this vetting, blaming Biden, which is interesting. It sort of shows that the one they really want to get at is Biden more than anything else, scapegoating Biden. Because in the end, this guy was admitted, he was given asylum, he was granted his visa under Trump, right? So he came in under the Biden program, but Trump a few months ago is the one who's responsible for giving him the full status asylum. So as a result of this, we've seen, three different waves of different classes of people being potentially excluded and banned from coming in the country. So at first we saw this, actually prior to this attack, actually, people have already forgotten this, but wasn't there a revetting of all the refugees or something that was going to happen? This was announced before the shooting, correct?
June.
So the things were already in the works prior to the killing around the day before Thanksgiving. Then after what happened, Trump immediately went to ban and block Afghans and all applications and processes, all immigration processing, even for people who are green card holders who are applying for naturalization. That has been stopped. And that really is tragic and sad, and I feel very bad for those people in particular, because many of those people have been here for many years, and it's just horrible. And then after that, he announced they're going to basically stop letting people in from third world countries, which does not have a legal definition. I'm assuming that has a lot to do with
it has a racist definition.
Well, I'm assuming what that actually means is the 19 countries that are on the list, which are already banned. So I don't really know what that actually means in practice. And then
Joseph, third world countries was not an official statement. That was Trump ranting on social media.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying the statements of Trump rants eventually become repurposed into official policy. So it's like he'll say something crazy or outlandish, and then the people will have to tailor that to fit within the laws as best they can, right? So third world countries will mean something. It won't just mean, a GDP below X amount of money, right? We know that. So it's going to probably primarily be those 19 countries on the list. They might even add a few more to the list. But I'm assuming that whatever the list is will be the third world countries. And then yeah, we've seen multiple different groups targeted since this attack, and ramping up calls for denaturalizations, which is a very, very complicated legal process that I don't think anyone seriously thinks is going to happen due to the fact that these people are all, to be denaturalized, you have to go through a federal process. And even Trump has probably denaturalized 20 people this year total. And usually those cases are explicit fraud or something. Somebody lied about their name on or lied about having a felony conviction. So they can't denaturalize people because they say things that are hurt the president's feelings. As for green card holders, though, the thing that is really frightening is they announced a review of all 19 countries on the list, every green card holder. Now that is frightening to me because we don't know what they're reviewing. What are they looking for? Are they looking for fraud or other illegal procurement? Or are they looking on your social media to see if you said anything in the last 10 years that they don't like? And that hasn't been clarified yet. The current guy who runs USCIS, this Joseph Edlow, is very, very anti-immigration. It's he is really one of these Stephen Miller acolyte types, and I wouldn't be surprised if for the people from the 19 countries they do social media search and see if there's any evidence of Palestinian activism and whatnot, which is really terrible. It's almost like an ex post facto punishment. So you didn't know this was going to happen until like after you already got the green card. It'll be interesting because a lot of people saying a lot of the stuff, if it goes to court, it might not hold up. The one defense people still have is the courts generally are protective of immigrants already in the country's rights in general. Now the Palestinian stuff has challenged that to some extent, but on other grounds, they've been pretty strong in their affirmation of certain legal protections. So how far they're willing to go, is this just simply a deflection from the Epstein files and all this other stuff going on? Nobody really knows yet. But what we do know is that you can see on social media a rise in just overt, violent rhetoric against Muslims that is coming from popular influencers that we all know have connections to the Israeli regime and other sources of that nature. And it's clearly coordinated. The algorithm is bumping certain accounts. I mean, I made a post the other day and I got literally 110 views. I mean, I have 3,800 followers, which isn't a lot, but when you have 3,800 followers, you usually get, I'm assuming more than 100 of those people looked at what I said, right? So clearly and other people as well are being platformed, and a lot of these other accounts that say stuff that is, just really violent. Like Laura Loomer literally said we're at war with Islam. I mean, the only thing she didn't do is tell people to go kill Muslims yet, and that's probably coming soon anyway with her type of rhetoric. So we see that the rhetoric has gotten much more intense, and I really see this. Is this the rise of actual fascism in the United States or not? And I'll switch the floor to you now. Do you think this is the beginning of something more serious, or do you think that this is just another one of these 1 or 2 week little spats, and then it'll go back to status quo, which isn't very good anyways? So go ahead.
I'd like to look at the context of things. I was smiling a lot while you were talking because it's interesting for the victims of the imperial order to see the order disfiguring itself. So the fact that the emperor is a clown is very useful to humanity because it shows humanity how horrible is the established order. Trump antics have been, and the need of his minions to justify them have been going to interesting ends lately. So he went and banned something that doesn't exist, Antifa. And as a result, his government, that is supposed to be rational, couldn't find anything to ban. So they went and found anarchist organizations in Europe and declared them to be banned terrorist organizations because there is nothing in the US. So they had to find something in Europe elsewhere. Then the next thing now is the cartel, Lost Souls, which is actually just a moniker analysts created for the governing corrupt elite in Venezuela. It's not a thing. It's just a term. And now he has declared that as a terrorist organization. So the thing doesn't exist. So his minions now will have to find something to call it that. So it's very interesting when you see the order behaving irrationally because it has a clown as a head. That's beautiful sight for for the downtrodden. Anyway, but for more serious discussion, uh, I don't think these announcements and policies came out of vacuum. I don't think they are just the standard Trump reactionary stuff. This builds, as you said, on his order in June. This is natural way in which Western political orders, so-called Western democracies, operate. So when they have a policy that they would like to announce, they would wait for a crisis and use it as a reason to announce it. That is occasionally have to do with security, immigration, draconian measures. It could also sometimes have to do with budget. When they have something nasty they want to announce, they wait for a crisis and then foist it on people.
Yeah.
It's available, it's ready. It just gets the final touches when the crisis happens. In this particular case, it wasn't even a crisis because, there was an attempt to assassinate Trump last year. That I think is much more serious than someone walking to two guys in the streets and shooting them. That's called Tuesday in Washington, D.C. But attempting to assassinate a former president while campaigning for presidency is very significant. In that case, nothing happened because there was no policy goal to serve, or there was no policy to sell through this. So nothing happened. In this case, there was policy waiting to be solved. Fine. So let's span out to what is going on. Fundamentally, in the Western Empire, there is a distinction between the US and the other states in the Western imperial order. The US is not a nation state in the natural sense, meaning it doesn't believe that the French is the best ever people and they are better than Germans and British and they have always been better. And it doesn't have this mythology. The mythology is the American dream, and the American dream is ideological. We are the city on a hill. We have this best constitution in the world, and we represent these ideas. So nativism is not natural to the US like it is for the other states of the Western imperial order. The interesting thing, it's coming to this shore, and it is coming late. So this trend of rise of fascism in the Western imperial order has started about maybe 20, 25 years ago. It arrived in the US late, about 15 years ago, 10 years ago, because it is different and it doesn't have this nationalist impulse. It's not that strong here. But in the end, it's the same order. So you see, for example, the US now is trying to promote fascist, anti non-European races all over the world. So Trump was ranting in the UN with these kinds of nonsense. Then 10 days ago, his State Department issued a directive to its embassies to specifically enforce that in the states of the Western Order: Canada, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, specifically, to go after these governments and tell them that they have to eject immigrants and to report any government that appears to be friendly to immigrants, and to report any actions against fascist movements as anti-human rights. This is a directive of the State Department's embassies. So the US is trying to lead a trend in the Western order. What people also don't realize is part of this fascist nativist trend is Putin. So a lot of those people in Europe explicitly understand that Putin is one of them. And that's why they ally with him. That also in the US, some people understand, but not everybody understand that. Because the US is a bit, as I keep saying, a bit distinct than European trend in fascism and nativism. That's why in Europe, it's explicitly nationalist fascist. In US, it's more nativist, which is not exactly the same. But these are similar trends, not exactly the same, but similar trends, and tell you that this is one imperial order. So when the US tries to create legitimacy to itself, it tries to create it by promoting these fascist ideas throughout the order, so it doesn't look peculiar or strange. What is Putin used to do that, but then he didn't have the legitimacy and he was considered far right, and Europe stamped him as far right, and stamped those who are associated with him as pro Putin, pro far right, crazy people. Now Trump is doing it from the other side, and he's trying to enforce to create this legitimacy, this platform. That said, this is not new in the Western imperial order. So the Western imperial order has always been oscillating between trying to dominate the world through we are better than you, we're going to kick you in the face, we're going to steal your money, enjoy it, and anybody who raises his head, we're going to cut it. That's the nativist, in your face shape, or the fascist shape, or the shape of we are all brothers, and to be brothers you have to be subservient to us and we have to steal you. That's the so-called globalist or internationalist or humanist form. And you can see it going back to the 19th century. So originally in the first half of the 19th century, it was the nativist fascist form. We have the right to steal everyone in the world, and we're going to steal them, and we're not going to give them any. And then came the liberal trend in the mid 19th century, and liberalism as an ideology showed up and said, well, actually, we want to trade with the whole world, and we want to give them and take from them, provided that we take everything and we give them, death, hunger, and misery. But actually, we are friends, and we're going to teach them. And then in the late 19th century, you switch to the other form, the nativist form, with eugenics and the meat in Europe, and cut in 1885, cut Africa to different empires. And then it reaches all the way to fascism and Nazism. And then it switches after Second World War to we are internationalists, we're brothers, we have United Nations, and then we're globalists. And then it switches back. But it's always about the imperial order hoarding everything and kicking everybody else in the teeth. That's the nature of the imperial order. So I think that the pendulum will swing again. So this will run its course and will swing again. But this, I believe, the reason you see these things is the imperial order feels safe. And when it feels safe, it kicks everybody in the teeth. When it feels threatened, we're all brothers. We're buddies, right? Go fight for us.
I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of major transformations right now in a lot of different areas, alliance shifting. This Venezuela thing is going to be interesting to see what actually ends up happening here. You still have the Iran situation, which is hardly resolved. By the way, I was reading that Iran was attacking PJAK militants in northern Soleimania last night or something. I don't know exactly what the deal on that is. But it seems like Iran's trying to do their own version of Israel in some regard. We're just going to attack who we think is a threat to us, and you're going to have to just deal with it. So you see other actors sort of taking the American-Israeli strategy and applying it to their own cases, which of course will facilitate a much more violent world. But I don't know. I think that, and of course, one thing we haven't even talked about is the Muslim Brotherhood looming ban that's on its way. That nobody even knows what that's going to mean yet. It looks like Trump has carved out whatever the Qatar and Turkey branches are, whatever that means, specifically focusing on, I believe, was Jordan, Egypt, and Syria in that proclamation. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that in the end those won't. People seem to assume that just because he mentioned those three by name, those are the only three he's going to target. But realistically speaking, he has a lot of he doesn't want to. I think he's going to want to avoid upsetting Qatar and Turkey, so he probably won't go through with designating anything in those countries because that could really damage those relations. But it looks almost to me like this whole thing is going to be more performative than anything substantive. I mean, most American organizations have already cut ties with the older school Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood branch, to my knowledge at least, and the impact would be marginal. But it meant primarily, though, to scare people. Like, that's the real function of this. I don't think you're going to be going after think tanks and research institutes and civil rights groups that, through a fifth degree of separation, have a tie to some organization in Egypt. I just don't think that's realistic. But I do think this is going to be used to scare people from Islamic political activism. and to quiet people down, because the way the term Muslim Brotherhood is being used online is not in a technical sense. It's meant to imply anybody who is basically, as we talked about earlier, who's Muslim, right? Practicing Muslim is basically being called a Muslim Brotherhood member at this point by these social media influencers. But again, I still think there's a disconnect between what the people like Laura Loomer and Amy Mecklenburg have to say and what people in the State Department are actually thinking. Because of course, two different games being played there. So, I don't know. That's sort of my take on certain things.
So
Go ahead.
this, I think, has to do with Zionist and Israeli plans, which are not the empire's plans. The empire is larger than the Zionist and Israeli interests. This is particularly pushed by Zionist and Israeli interests. It's very clear. So Jordan, Lebanon is directly related to that. Egypt is indirectly related to that. It's in support of the local joker, Sisi, really. So this is obviously driven by Zionist and Israeli plans. But the imperial order has more interesting plans than this. Going back to my thesis about the fact that the imperial order tends to oscillate between apparent openness and apparent closure, it's never really open and never really closed. Because the imperial order realized that there is a lot of money to be had through being open to the world to steal it. And on the other hand, we want to steal the world to enjoy the spoils alone. We want to keep the unwashed masses outside the borders. Both shapes actually operate on this principle, whether they are in the North American sense liberals or conservatives, or in the European sense socialists or social democrats or Christian democrats. It's the same game. The imperial order has a certain norm. Colonialism has a certain tempo. It's about exploiting others, exploiting the weaker. And that means we have to be able to steal them, enjoy the theft alone. The fact that we steal people and then they come after us here to share in it, that's not acceptable. Then why did we steal them to begin with? If they can come and share with us there, it's quite rational. If you understand this ugliness in the Machiavellian sense, it makes perfect sense. Just realize that the prophet of this order is not any prophet. It's Machiavelli. And if you understand that, you understand that this is a very rational logic. It's a very rational order. Just it's rationality of ugliness, of evil.
Thank you. It's very interesting.
جزاكم الله خير.
جزاك الله خير.